Okay, so in this video, we're going to review how to navigate your file system and in general, just what the file system actually means. Okay, so let's first talk about how files are organized in your computer. So when your computer stores data, they do so in the form of files, which you can access through your computer's interface. And when I say data, it can really mean almost anything that you can store in your computer. So it can be anything from documents to spreadsheets or even computer programming scripts, right? In fact, a lot of files that you have on your computer can actually be considered what I call text files, which means that they store their data in human readable format. And so if you think of like a Word document, you think of like a spreadsheet, right? So that's a format that we as humans can read. And if you and believe it or not, MATLAB scripts are no different. So I think when people think of MATLAB scripts, they think of like some computer program that's really complex, but it's really just some words that are in a file, and it's stored just like that, right? So MATLAB, I would consider MATLAB script a text file, right? And that text file, or the text that's in that file, is interpreted by MATLAB to execute its commands. On the other hand, the computer also has binary files that are in formats that can only be read by the computer, and so those are used to store data in a more efficient way. Okay, and the way that your computer organizes these files is in this concept of folders, which is kind of like this tiered format to organize many files in a computer. All right, so a typical, folder structure might be something like this, right? So you might store some personal files like so, and so you might have like a top folder called My Documents, and then inside that Documents folder will be folders for different, aspects of your life. So maybe you have a folder for school, folder for work, health, financial, and hobbies. Okay, and so to navigate your file system, we have this idea of the current folder, and so when you're inside a current folder, you can only see the files that are inside that folder, right? And so, for instance, if we're inside this folder called school, the only files that we can see are this file called MATLAB or math class, and this file called English class. Okay. And so if you wanted to access a file that's outside this folder or in a different folder, you have to actually move there physically. So, I think the physical analogy is really nice here. So, say you want to access the file called household budget, right? And so you need to actually move to that folder. And so to navigate there, you can only move to a folder that's kind of directly connected to your folder, right? So we can't, and so a lot of times we can't jump directly from school to financial unless we have a shortcut there. So normally the way we do that is we first go up a level, and so first we'll go to the My Documents folder, okay? Because the My Documents folder is connected to school. And then from the My Documents folder, we could then jump into the financial folder to access your household budget. Okay, and so this is kind of a very basic example of how you access files through kind of jumping around the folders and making sure that you're in the correct folder. Okay, um, and so this visual representation of how you navigate your file system is really only just for for educational purposes. And so in your computer you normally don't see it as this kind of flowchart kind of thing. And so the way your computer kind of organizes these files is through the concept of a path. And so the path is kind of a text is kind of a text representation of all the folders that organize your files, right? And so the path always starts with the root. And so the root is kind of the topmost folder, and so the ultimate omega parent folder, right? And then from there, you list out all the different folders that you have to get to in order to reach the ultimate file, right? And so for this example here, our root is the My Documents folder, and then from there we go down to the financial folder, because the financial folder is the child of My Documents, and then your ultimate file is in that folder. Okay. And so for many computers, the root is often the name of the hard drive. And so you probably know on your computer you have like a C drive or a D drive, right? So that's often the root. And so, there's often a lot of folders on the path to, whatever file you want to do. Okay. And so folders are often classified as either a parent or a child folder. And so a parent folder is one that's, one level up compared to one down. And the child folders are the ones subsequent to that, right? So as an example, this My Documents folder is the child of the Justin folder because the Justin folder is closer to the root. But meanwhile, it's also the parent of the financial folder because it's closer to the root than financial, right? And then, you can say the same things for the Justin folder as well, okay? Okay, so why is this relevant for MATLAB? So MATLAB uses the exact same file navigation system in your computer, And it can only run MATLAB files that are in its current folder. And so if you open up the MATLAB terminal, you'll probably see this bar right here. So this bar here is very important. This tells you what the active or current folder is for MATLAB. Okay, and if you want to run scripts, often the best way to do that is to make sure that your MATLAB script is inside this current folder. Okay. Another place where this is relevant is that in your MATLAB scripts, you're often going to be accessing data files that are outside your script, okay? So, let's say that you ran an experiment and then you save the experimental results in some kind of spreadsheet and you want to load that spreadsheet into MATLAB, right? And so you might have MATLAB commands to load that data. And so in order for MATLAB to access it, this file, this data file, this external file, has to be in the same folder as your MATLAB script, okay? And so if you're telling MATLAB to look for this file called data.txt, that file has to be in the same current folder, okay? Another way that you can do this, so let's say that you have the file in another part of your computer, is that you can give MATLAB the direct path to that file, right? And so if let's say that this data file is located in this folder here, which is different than your MATLAB script, you can feed it that direct path, and then MATLAB is smart enough to go looking for that path instead of looking in the current folder. Okay. One last feature that MATLAB has is that you can actually tell MATLAB to look in multiple different places, and so this idea is called adding it to the path. Okay, and so if you've ever tried to run a script in MATLAB and that script is in another folder, you probably have come up to a prompt that looks like this. Okay, and so normally or at least what I tell my students to do is I tell them to just change the folder just to make sure the current folder matches that of the MATLAB script. But another way that you can do it is you can just add it to the path, and so MATLAB can kind of stay where it is in its current path, in its current folder, and then just access a file access a script that's in another folder. Okay, and so this is pretty useful. Where if you have data stored on your computer in multiple different locations, you can add all of those to the path and then access all of those from the same script.